Hello, good evening, and thanks for being with us tonight. Here on the Hill, I'm Blake Burman. A battle cry from the commander-in-chief. President Trump trying to rally Republicans.
You got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, they'll find a reason to impeach me. I'll get impeached.
Plus, what President Trump told lawmakers about his Venezuelan strikes. And the rhetoric ramped up once again. What the White House is telling NewsNation tonight about the possibility of sending the military to Greenland. Also this evening, sorrow in Southern California. How is it that hundreds of residents are still homeless on the eve of the one-year anniversary of the devastating wildfires? We are live in LA in a bit. And how much longer will you be able to say, "What's up, Doc?" Why one state just prescribed AI over a medical doctor. Is this the future for your prescriptions? But first tonight, the presidential rallying cry. President Trump huddling with congressional Republicans today, imploring them to embrace his year one agenda heading into the year two midterms. A domestic focus with the backdrop of major international questions for the commander-in-chief. The president today touting his daring Venezuela decision.
But the United States proved once again that we have the most powerful, most lethal, most sophisticated, and most fearsome. It's a fearsome military on planet Earth.
In moments with us, Florida Senator Rick Scott. Kelly Meyer is at the White House with the president's message ahead of the midterms. But first, we begin tonight with our Robert Sherman live for us once again. Robert, hello, good evening. We started the day talking Venezuela, and tonight, all of a sudden, Greenland back in the news for the White House.
Amazing how things can change so quickly here, Blake. The White House was just asked about the president's ambitions and interests in Greenland. This is a statement that we just got from them a short while ago. I'll read it for you. It says, President Trump has made it well known that acquiring Greenland is a national security priority of the United States, and it's vital to deter our adversaries in the Arctic region. The president and his team are discussing a range of options to pursue this important foreign policy goal. And of course, utilizing the U.S. military is always an option at the commander-in-chief's disposal. The White House has talked about how they view the Arctic as this new frontier with steep competition coming from Russia and China. This also plays into the Pentagon's restructuring of strategy. Less of a focus on Europe, wanting Europe to take care of its own backyard. More of a focus on the Western Hemisphere, where it could have a more direct impact on Americans. That's why you have all these troops here in the Caribbean right now. And after that Venezuela operation on Saturday, the president said that could be just a piece of this. Take a listen.
Colombia is very sick, too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. And he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you. And by the way, you have to do something with Mexico. Mexico has to get their act together. Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security.
And then, of course, Cuba is a part of this conversation as well, with the president saying he doesn't think any direct military action would be needed in Cuba because he believes with Nicolas Maduro out of the picture, the money will stop flowing from Caracas to Havana. And he believes that it's possible that the administrations in Cuba will collapse on their own. Blake?
Robert Sherman, live for us tonight in the Caribbean. Robert, thank you. Now to our Kelly Meyer over at the White House with the president's message to Republicans earlier today. Kelly, good evening.
Hey there, Blake. So I was in the room today when President Trump started telling House Republicans that he is giving them a roadmap to victory, and that road leads right to health care. The president did hit on some of the top-line policies like the border, voter ID laws, and men and women's sports that he talked about in 2024. But he did weave in, as he calls it, his new pitch on affordability without ever saying that word specifically. He talked about lowering costs for energy and prescription drugs. And on health care, he is telling Republicans, quote, this is going to be your issue.
You want to turn this thing? You work on favored nations, you work on borders, you work on all of the things that we talked about. But now you take the health care issue away from them.
The president also touting the work of the military in the recent operation in Venezuela, leading to the capture of Maduro, calling it an amazing military feat. A congressman near me at the moment echoed with an amen, and the room rose to their feet with applause. The president didn't expand on what the future looks like for Venezuela or the other country that he predicts could fall next, Cuba. Blake.
Kelly Meyer, live for us over at 1600. Kelly, thank you. Joining us now, Rick Scott, Republican senator from the great state of Florida, sits on the Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committee. Senator Scott, always nice to see you, sir. Welcome back. Thanks for being with us tonight. Let's start with...
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well, sir. Let's start with one of the questions about who's running Venezuela and what that looks like going forward, because you have said that Delcy Rodriguez is not the president of Venezuela, but NewsNation is told that a CIA report assessed that the top members of the Maduro regime would be the best ones going forward to run Venezuela. So did the CIA get it wrong, Senator?
Well, here's what I know. There was an election last year, all right? Maria Corina Machado was pushed off the ballot by Maduro, all right? They still proved that they basically won. I mean, I bet Maria would have gotten 90% of the vote. So what they proved that Edmundo Gonzalez got 70 or 80% of the vote. And so, I mean, this is a country that believes in democracy. Venezuelans have fought for democracy in the past. Chavez, Maduro took it away. They're going to have democracy again. So whatever happens, when they have an election, they can either take the last election or have an election soon. Maria's going to be the president of Venezuela. That's what's going to happen here. Now, in the meantime, here's what we have to understand. Delcy Rodriguez is not the president of Venezuela. She is the head of the cartels, just like Maduro was. She was Maduro's right-hand person, right? So she's the head of a regime, the Chavez-Maduro regime. Now, what should we be doing today? Today, let's get these political prisoners released. One person, Maria Araposa, she was arrested only because she proved that Maria, or that Edmundo Gonzalez won. I talked to Maria Corina Machado today, and one thing we talked about is she's very appreciative of what President Trump has done, but we've got to get these political prisoners released, and we've got to stop this oppression.
Why are you so confident
that Rodriguez is doing right now? She's a person.
Why are you so confident, Senator, that Maria Corina Machado would be the future leader of Venezuela? We know she won the Nobel Peace Prize last year in 2025, but the Trump administration hasn't really embraced that possibility going forward. Should they?
Well, I think what we need to have, let's have an election. I mean, the president doesn't need to pick, who the next president's going to be. Let's make sure we have a democratic election. We can make sure that happens. Let's have a peaceful transition, right? And then whoever wins, they win. Now, do I believe it's going to be Maria? Yeah. Maria Corina Machado is a fighter. I mean, she is loved by Venezuelans. In Venezuela and in America and in Chile and in Colombia, every place Venezuelans have gone, because she has been a fighter forever. So it's going to happen. I want it to happen quickly. I appreciate what the president has done. I understand the process of a transition to a democracy. It's going to happen.
Let me take you to Cuba, because you made a comment, Senator. It was on 60 Minutes. It aired a few weeks ago, that if Maduro were to go, you said, quote, it'll be the end of Cuba. Here was Secretary of State Rubio and President Trump in the recent days, and then we'll pick it up on the other side.
One of the biggest problems the Venezuelans have is they have to declare independence from Cuba. They tried to basically colonize it from a security standpoint. So, yeah, look, if I lived in Havana and I was in the government, I'd be concerned.
They got all of their income from Venezuela, from the Venezuelan oil. They're not getting any of it. And Cuba literally is ready to fall.
Do you believe it is the beginning of the end of Cuba still? And if so, when is Cuba liberated?
Oh, it's going to be the end of the Diaz-Canel regime. The Castro regime. It's going to happen. We're in the process of happening now. I mean, I was with Jose Daniel
When do you think? Like within weeks or months?
Everything takes longer than you think, right? Look, I'd like everything to happen today for the kids of Venezuela, for the kids of Cuba. But I think it's going to happen. I think it'll probably happen maybe this year, maybe next year. It's going to happen. I thought Maduro would be out by Christmas. It took a little bit longer. So who knows when it's going to happen? But we're going to get democracy. Think about it. This is not other parts of the world. In the southern hemisphere, people have fought for democracy. They have a background of fighting for freedom. The people of Cuba are fighters for freedom, right? So this is going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen. Today will be a great day, but it will happen.
Let me take it back domestically here. President Trump spoke to House Republicans today. You're obviously in the Senate, but he went through a host of issues, and one of them is health care. Here's what the president said.
Let the money go not to the big fat cats and the insurance companies that made 1,700% over the last short period of time. Let the money go directly to the people where they can buy their own health care.
For the folks who don't know, before you got into this whole political business, you ran hospital chains down there in Florida, so you know about this. Can you explain this concept? And you have a plan out there that's sort of similar to the president of giving the money to health savings account directly to the people. But that money, Senator, eventually makes its way back to the insurance companies if you buy insurance. So how would that change anything?
Well, because here's the difference, right? Like, I want to make sure people get health care. I grew up in a family that didn't have access to health care. I remember when my brother had a disease, my mom had to find a free hospital 4 hours away because nobody in my hometown would take care of him for free, and she had no money. So it's important to me that people get health care. Now, if you want to control the cost of health care, which is the problem, make people a consumer. If we're going to subsidize their health care, give them what we're going to give them into a health savings account, mine you call it a Trump account. Right? Put it in the Trump account and then let them buy the insurance they want to buy. They might want to buy directly care from a doctor or from a surgery center. There's a surgery center in Oklahoma City that is dramatically less expensive than what Medicare or Medicaid pays. Right? So we'll start shopping. People become shoppers for healthcare rather than having the federal government tell them what they have to buy or some insurance company say, oh, you have to have this plan. Let people buy. They're smart. My dad had a 6th grade education. He's no dummy. He didn't have much education. He knew how to buy things. My mom had 11th grade education. She could buy things. They're smart. Americans are smart. They'll buy healthcare smarter, and the cost of healthcare will come down.
Senator, you and I go way back. I think I was probably, when you and I were both in different lives, maybe the first person to have ever interviewed you in politics. One of the first.
Probably. Back when no one knew me and I ran for governor.
Exactly, way back when. And I know, and the folks across Florida know that when you ran, you talked about jobs, 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 right? That's how you got elected. And the reason I bring it up is because at the start of the year, we've heard a lot of Venezuela, Venezuela, Venezuela from the president, and not prices, prices, prices. And as he addressed Republicans today, and as there is such a focus on foreign issues, do you believe that the president needs to focus more domestically, at home, and on pocketbook issues than he is right now?
I think he is. If you look at what he did, securing the border protected Americans, right? Getting rid of Maduro, which has basically been sending criminals in here to rape and pillage our kids in our communities with drugs and criminals, has probably saving Americans. That's good for he is domestically focused. Also, I believe when the oil companies go back and reinvest in Venezuela, what's going to happen is that oil prices are going to come down, so gas prices will come down, which means, the people in my state, which are struggling because of under Biden years of the inflation, they're going to be able to afford more things. When gas comes down, that's the fastest way people have more money in their pocket. So I think he is focused domestically. He's focused on making sure we get rid of the regulatory environment that adds more jobs. Make sure we've cut taxes. No, I think he's focused domestically.
All right, we'll leave it there. Senator Rick Scott, nice to see you, sir. Come on back. Rick Scott, Republican from Florida.
Bye, Blake.
Thank you.
All
right,
bye-bye.
Catch you soon. Still to come here on the Hill. Immigration agents surging into Minnesota as the governor there, Tim Walz, defends staying in office amid $1 billion fraud scandal. Plus, healthcare takes a potentially huge step into the future. Have you heard what they're doing out there in Utah? They are spearheading a program that uses AI to renew prescriptions. No doctor required. So how does that work, you might ask? We're finding out. I'm Blake Burman. Those stories, a whole lot more when you return, 4 minutes away. .520 in Minneapolis tonight, where they are still dealing with the fallout from widespread fraud allegations, as President Trump is now pointing the finger at California and the governor there, Gavin Newsom. The president posting on Truth Social, quote, California under Governor Gavin Newsom, as he calls him, is more corrupt than Minnesota, if that's possible. The fraud investigation of California has begun. Now, the Post follows a report of potential fraud in the Golden State unveiled by a Republican in California who's running for governor. Newsom, a potential 2028 presidential candidate, has not shied away from responding to the president, and his press office had the following, saying, quote, Donald Trump is a deranged habitual liar whose relationship with reality ended years ago. Well, as welfare fraud is investigated out west, the governor in Minnesota, Tim Walz, today doubled down on his plans to finish out his term in the wake of the widening scandal over fraud in social services in Minnesota.
I'm not going anywhere. And you can make all your requests for me to resign over my dead body. Will that happen? I will fight this thing till the very end to make this state better.
And as the governor was speaking today, the Department of Homeland Security ramping up operations in that state, which could include some 2,000 agents. That's where we find our Allie Bradley tonight, live for us, not along the border, but chilly Minneapolis with those operations there. Hello, Allie.
Yeah, hey, Blake, not at the border anymore, right? But we're talking about what ICE is saying is the biggest law enforcement, immigration enforcement operation that we have seen. And we're talking about roughly 2,000 immigration federal agents and officers that are surging into the Twin Cities area in response to the immigration and fraud issues. Now, some are already here. Some are going to continue to kind of trickle in throughout the week. But the mayor's office of Minneapolis says that they had no word whatsoever, no heads up at all that the federal deployment was happening, that they were coming to their city. So here's what the office had to say. In a statement to NewsNation, Mayor Jacob Fry, their office saying, quote, if the administration were serious about cracking down on crime or fraud, they wouldn't be bringing chaos and division to our streets. Deploying thousands of ICE agents and border control to our city is not about safety. The goal is to terrorize and scare our immigrant communities. In Minneapolis, we stand rock solid with our immigrant families. Now, Secretary Noem was boots on the ground as well here in the Twin Cities. Her convoy rolled up to the federal building earlier this morning, and then she was out, actually, as what you're watching right now, on a targeted enforcement operation where DHS says Noem joined federal law enforcement to apprehend an Ecuadorian illegal immigrant convicted of robbery and wanted for murder and sexual assault, according to the agency. So here's what we know about who else they might be looking for based on data obtained through our DHS sources. Nearly 134,000 illegal immigrants are currently on ICE's docket here in the Minnesota area. Of them, nearly 34,000 have final orders of removal, so that means a judge said they had to go, but they still haven't left. More than 11,000 are convicted criminals. Now, of the roughly 134,000 on ICE's radar, the vast majority are from Guatemala and Mexico. But as you can see there, more than 3,000 are Somali nationals who, of course, have been the focus of fraud investigation and President Trump's immigration and fraud crackdown in the Twin Cities. Now, what's next here for this area? We talked about the 2,000 agents and officers.
All right, it's the bottom of the hour. Some of the top stories that we're monitoring here in our newsroom tonight. A bit of breaking news. Michael Reagan, the eldest son of President Ronald Reagan, died on Sunday, his family announced today. He is remembered as a guardian of his father's legacy. Michael Reagan was 80 years old. In California, the congressman there, Doug LaMalfa, a rice farmer who served 7 terms in Congress, has also passed. The 65-year-old Republican passed away during surgery due to a medical emergency. President Trump spoke about LaMalfa today, even talked about how he was often a reliable vote for the president. The president expressed his grief over the death. LaMalfa's passing brings Republicans to a slim 218 to 213 majority in the House. Over in Texas, an emotional day there as families gathered to witness the trial of a school police officer who prosecutors say stood by as a man murdered 19 children and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary in Uvalde. In opening statements, prosecutors claim that former officer Adrian Gonzalez did nothing to distract or stop the shooter when he saw him outside the elementary school. Instead, prosecutors are making the case that he waited several minutes before entering that school at a time that was too late to save lives, something the defense claimed is absurd.
So why are we here? When a child is in danger and calls 911, we have the right to expect a response.
Government wants to make it seem like he just sat there, you know. He didn't just sit there. He did what he could with what he knew at the time.
Gonzalez is one of 2 officers to be prosecuted in that shooting. He's facing 29 counts of child abandonment or endangerment, excuse me. Now, over in California, residents there still rebuilding 1 year after deadly wildfires ripped through the Los Angeles area. Many say they are being slowed down because of red tape. Now, you can see here that less than half of rebuilding permits for residents have been approved in LA County, Los Angeles, Malibu, and Pasadena, areas devastated by last year's fires. And that's according to state data. Our Nancy Liu, back in the Pacific Palisades with what she is seeing there. Nancy, it felt like I was on air with you nonstop 1 year ago tomorrow for many days. And a lot of questions since have been about the rebuilding efforts. What is it like there now?
It's definitely a slow go. Behind me, you see one house that's been rebuilt since the fires. And with over 1,400 building plans approved around me, we've got active construction sites. More homes are being built. But we want to take you up live with our News Nation drone to give you a bird's eye view of how things look around here, because you can surmise that it is very much a patchwork recovery. It's likely going to stretch on for decades. Most of the lots here, they remain empty, and an estimated 70% of displaced residents, they can't come back yet. All over the Palisades, you see protest signs. They're put up by a new resident group. The group is called They Let Us Burn. Organizers blame Governor Newsom, Mayor Bass, a number of local agencies for failing this community. And exclusive new video obtained by News Nation's Rich McHugh, that's fueling more anger. The footage shows smoke in the exact spot where the Palisades fire started. That's after LAFD had declared that a New Year's Day fire last year was already contained. Now, organizers of the Let Us Burn group, They Let Us Burn, they're marking tomorrow's anniversary with a rally. That's going to start around the same time as the fire, which changed this community forever. And Blake, yes, I can recall that day a year ago. We were in a neighborhood not far from here, and you remember how the flames were jumping homes and homes were catching on fire while I was on the air with you.
Yep, and I remember telling you, Nancy, are you okay? Are you okay? I mean, you were right there and on it for many days and still on the story 1 year later. Nancy Liu, thank you. I'm sure we'll check back in with you again tomorrow, Nancy, out in California tonight. All right, over to Utah now, and a question tonight of how much longer you might be able to say, "What's up, Doc?" The state of Utah now announcing a first-of-its-kind program that uses artificial intelligence to refill patient prescriptions. No doctor needed. The Utah Department of Commerce saying in part, quote, "This agreement marks the first state-approved program in the country that allows an AI system to legally participate in medical decision-making for prescription renewals." Dr. Adam Oskowitz is the co-founder of Doctronic. That is the company behind the project, and the doctor joins us live tonight here on The Hill. Dr. Oskowitz, thanks for being with us. First off, congratulations. Startup life is in tech is hard. I get it, trust me. Tell us why this is such a big deal and what exactly your company is doing out there in the state of Utah.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I mean, I think this is a big deal because it's the first time that a state has said, we're going to allow an AI to make a clinical decision, right? That's a groundbreaking event. I have to give kudos to the state of Utah. They've been very forward thinking about this. I think they're doing it in the right way. First and foremost, they're doing it in a safe way, right? So they're saying, let's start with a very safe use case. Let's start with prescription renewals. Patients have already been on the medication. Doctors already said that this medication is safe. And oftentimes, patients are going to have to wait 2 weeks, 2 months to go back and see their primary care doctor to get a renewal. So there's a real pain point there. And so it seems like a logical place to start and say, hey, can this be done safely and effectively? And they've also said, let's collect the data. Let's see how this looks, right? And so that's how we got to work with them.
So there's probably a lot of folks at home going, removing a doctor from a decision on a prescription refill, what could go wrong, right? And there's been some pushback in the medical community. I actually asked ChatGPT, probably the most famous AI product, what they thought about this idea, what it thought about this idea. And here's what ChatGPT told me. It said, it's a promising idea, but risky if done without strong guardrails. What would you say to the concerns?
Yeah, I mean, I think ChatGPT is right, and that's why we built guardrails into the system. So there are nearly a dozen guardrails within the system that we built for the state of Utah. This is different than a product that you would use today. It is vastly different than a ChatGPT or an Anthropic in that we do checks on the background to make sure that things are safe. We check things like the dosage. We make sure that drug-drug interactions are accounted for. We make sure that the indication for the drug is appropriate. So this isn't just an AI chatbot. This is actually a next generation product that uses the kind of guardrails you're talking about.
Are we going to start seeing this in other states? And eventually, are you going to go to the FDA and say, hey, let's bring this nationwide?
Yeah, so part of the reason why Utah makes sense is because this is really the practice of medicine. This isn't something that is a medical device. And so the practice of medicine is regulated at the state level. And so I believe, and our company believes, that this will actually play out at the state level. And yes, there are actually a handful of other sandboxes, other states that we're in discussions with to bring to those states. And I would expect maybe half a dozen other states approve something like this in 2026.
Huh, wow. You know, healthcare is the most booming job market right now in the United States. The numbers show it and prove it. Right now, there's 18.3 million healthcare workers in this country. For context, there was about 10 million at the start of the century. And I just wonder, doctor, and I'm sure some folks are thinking about this, if we're going to be removing the doctor from part of the conversation for this one use case, is this going to take medical jobs? Is AI essentially going to make that trend go down?
Yeah, I don't think we take a single medical job, and here's the reason why. Medicine has always had a fundamental math problem. There's never going to be enough supply to meet the demand, right? Think about your own use cases. You actually don't go see the doctor oftentimes because there's such a long wait. And so you could have 10 times as many doctors as you do today. You still probably wouldn't have enough to see all the patients that you need to. And so I think what we're really doing is filling in the gaps here. We're not necessarily taking away jobs from doctors or other healthcare workers.
Dr. Adam Oskowitz, it is fascinating. Congratulations. Let us know how you do as maybe this spreads to more states. AI and refilling your prescriptions. The doctor with us tonight. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Of course, still to come. Other side of the break. The midterm elections are fast approaching. And the president today acknowledged some challenges are facing his party.
I wish you could explain to me what the hell's going on with the mind of the public.
What the president wants to hear from Republicans and what worries him about the midterms. And in the middle of all this, he's got Venezuela, how that changes everything. Full panel, other side of the break.
And my fellow citizens, the golden age of America begins right now.
We got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, I mean, they'll find a reason to impeach me. I'll get impeached.
President Trump, nearly 1 year ago on Inauguration Day, ushering in what he called the golden age of America. Fast forward 11 and a half months later to today, the pressure, the president says, essentially is on the midterms as they are fast approaching. Full panel here with me now. Chris Cillizza, News Nation contributor. Lindsey Granger, co-host of Rising on the Hill, doing double duty. How about that? And Mark Short, former chief of staff to Vice President Mike Pence. Mark, Lindsey, Chris, hello to you all.
Hello.
Nice to see you all. Happy New Year. We watched that for about an hour and a half today. And the reason why I played that, the golden age of America, a year ago, it was a much different message today. Like, yes, the president touted his policies, but there was a pretty clear warning to his side of the aisle today.
Yeah, so in his inauguration speech, it was, welcome to the golden age, right. I'm going to fix everything. Right. I alone can fix it. He didn't say that, but that was the message. Today, he literally said, I got all I think he said the word nuggets, but like, I basically done all this stuff. You've got all the raw material, now work with it, which is very different, right? One is, I'm gonna take care of this, I will fix everything. The other is, well, okay, now it's on you. And again, Donald Trump, and he said this multiple times in this speech, I mean, he said a lot, it went for an hour and a half, but he said multiple times in the speech, history is against us. I don't know why this is, but the president's party tends to lose the midterms. He is not unaware that he is likely, unless he can make this be an anomaly in 2026, that this will be a bad election for him. And remember, Donald Trump is not going to blame Donald Trump. Donald Trump's a scapegoats guy. Right. So he's already saying, I gave them all the stuff they needed and they couldn't do it. I mean, you can hear that in a year's time being his take.
Well, I found it to be a very lengthy, meandering speech. I did listen into it, but I think that, you know, the president understands that his approval rating is low. He understands that he went from America first to we run Venezuela in 1 year, and that all these leaders in Congress have to go home and explain to their constituents the same thing that Marjorie Taylor Greene was trying to articulate, that the policies that were touted on the campaign trail are not being fulfilled. And so I think that he knows there are people that are looking at what the president has accomplished in the first year and saying that they didn't pass the bar with some of these policies, but then also understands that there are a lot of people that are at home wanting more and looking for change and didn't vote for the president because they liked the way that he behaved in his antics, but they voted for him because they thought he was going to fix the economy.
So, Mark, here's what the president said today, essentially about the American public, and then we'll pick it up.
Explain to me what the hell's going on with the mind of the public, because we have the right policy. They don't. They have a horrible policy. They do stick together.
Is it that the public just doesn't recognize? Is it messaging? Is it something else? What's your view?
Look, I remember being in his private dining room, just the two of us, 2018.
Tell me.
And he was watching the network he used to work at.
Okay.
And
we'll
they had
keep it unnamed, but keep going.
They had a segment on about the midterms and what to expect. He said, well, what do you think? And I said, Mr. President, we're going to lose. And he got kind of quiet, and he's like, well, that won't be so bad. We'll get to do infrastructure. I said, no, Mr. President, you'll get impeached. And I think that, you know, over time, he's come to realize there's not going to be a bipartisan bill. There's going to be investigations about his administration that is not really welcome. And I think that his message instead should be focused on how we're going to fix affordability. I think a lot of Americans voted to secure the border and to lower inflation. The first part he's done. The second part remains unsolved. And that's what he needs to be doing from a policy perspective to make sure he gets reelected.
By the way, Mark's advice was right then, and Donald Trump's sentiment now is probably right, although it would be incredibly stupid of Democrats if they won the House to try to impeach Donald Trump again, because it's almost certainly not going to take in the Senate, even if Democrats, which I don't think will happen, even if they take the majority, they're not going to get 60 votes for it. But they may go down that road again. I think that would be a giant mistake, but it could be a repeat.
I think there were some who didn't want to do it the first time, but Chris, their base was so demanding.
Yeah, and their base will be demanding this time. You're right.
Let me ask you this. Based on that story that you just shared and the conversation that you have, do you believe that, and what we heard today, do you believe that he thinks Republicans are going to lose in November?
I think he does, yeah. I think he understands where we are historically. He understands that when one party's in control, Americans like divided government, whether it's a Republican administration or the beginning of the Biden years, the beginning of the Obama years. That's just where we are. And so I think he understands that, yeah.
But I think if Democrats win the midterms and squander the opportunity and use it to, again, impeach President Trump rather than pursue policies that might get them to the presidency in 2028, that would be a silly mistake.
All right, here's the president today on, it's again, same gathering there with congressional Republicans, speaking about Venezuela.
The United States proved once again that we have the most powerful, most lethal, most sophisticated, and most fearsome. It's a fearsome military on planet Earth. We had a lot of boots on the ground, but it was amazing. And think of it, nobody was killed.
How does he, to Mark's point, Chris, how should he handle this balance here of all of these foreign issues? But as I brought up to Senator Rick Scott, we started the year with Venezuela, and not prices.
Yep. I would say what he should talk about, affordability, to Mark's point, is number 1, 2, and 3. If he has to talk about something other than that, he should talk about Venezuela, because I think people broadly, I don't think Venezuela wins Republicans the election, but I think people are like, we went in there, we took out a bad guy, the way we did it was super cool and advanced and blah, 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 blah. But he spent so much time in that speech just talking about January 6th. whatever you think happened, and I would say that the facts are pretty clear, but whatever you think happened 5 years ago today, relitigating that and the 2020 election, he was talking about how he won Minnesota 3 times in that speech. It is, if I'm a Republican in a swing, if I'm Mike Lawler in New York, sitting in that crowd, and you think, all right, we're going to get a blueprint of what we need to do from Donald Trump, and you get 85 minutes of that, I would not be surprised if you saw more retirements among Republicans. Because Mark's point is right. History suggests it, and this is not a guy who's going to stand message.
How do you explain this, though? New Reuters poll. He's up to 42% approval. Donald Trump's never going to be a guy that gets 55, 60%, but that's sort of, it's trending in a better direction for him.
Well, I think when you look at like the Venezuela incident that we're talking about in Doral, Florida, there's the largest population of Venezuelans there that we're celebrating. So the issue can be nuanced, right? He looks strong on crime because he's saying that he's attacking narco terrorists and narcotics missions that are blocking drugs from getting to our country. But when you really dig into the weeds and talk about how he connected some of this to fentanyl, and fentanyl is not even coming out of Venezuela, and when you look at the fact that he pardoned the former Honduras president for similar crimes, it doesn't make sense about the actual policy and mission that Trump is pushing forward when it comes to attacking the drug crisis in our country. And so I don't know that this goes the test of time with the support, because we did the big thing. We had the big news over the weekend. But then how do you explain all the other things that you did following or before that?
Mark, let me leave you with this. Greenland back in the news as the White House doesn't take military options off the table. Is the president doing this, one, to make the media's head spin, two, because this is actual policy of some sort that they're going to pursue, three, he's looking toward overall legacy, a combination of that? What is it?
It's all the above.
Okay.
But I think what's lost is that we have a base on Greenland, and it's the largest that's there, and why not continue to build that base out? But, you know, I think also the 42% is not hard to explain when you consider we've had tax relief, markets are all-time high, and you see the incredible military operations in Venezuela and in Iran, and contrast that to the disastrous withdrawal under Biden. It's a strong message. But to Chris's point, why spend any minute talking about January 6th? He could be talking about some of his accomplishments.
It's a strong message if you stay on that message, right? I mean, that's always the problem. I mean,
Chris,
it's not capable of doing it.
Chris, Lindsay, Mark, appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. Still to come. Other side, President Trump today coming clean. What the president admits the first lady doesn't like him doing. Other side. All right, if you're just getting home, trying to catch up on some of today's stories, here's some Hill headlines before we head out tonight. Pete Buttigieg heading to the Badger State, the Hill reporting tonight. Buttigieg set to travel to Wisconsin for town hall amid 2028 speculation. The former transportation secretary slated to be in La Crosse, Wisconsin, where he will focus on cost of living, affordability. Of course, that's an issue likely to define the midterms, possibly the 2028 presidential election as well. He might be in that race. Also, this evening, Trump. Melania hates when I dance. President Trump, of course, known to cut a rug at his rallies and public appearances, even inspiring countless copycats of his signature dance move. You know this, you see it all the time from him. But one person who's apparently not a fan, the First Lady. The president telling GOP lawmakers today that she is a, quote, very classy person, but finds his moves unpresidential. To check out those stories and more, all you have to do, head on over to thehill.com, scan that QR code on your screen. I write for the morning newsletter every morning. All right, time for my take now. Social media is a trap for politicians. That is part of the new mantra for Vivek Ramaswamy, the one-time Republican presidential candidate who's now running for governor of Ohio. Ramaswamy now writing in a Wall Street Journal op-ed that his New Year's resolution, you can see it there, he says he's getting rid of Instagram, getting rid of X. He now argues that, quote, leaders who depend on social media to gauge public opinion are looking through a broken mirror. He says what's happening on the apps isn't what he's hearing and seeing across the Buckeye State. And here's why this stood out to me. We often worry, right, about the social media pitfalls for our kids. So if we tell our children that social media doesn't always reflect reality, it seems to me that Ramaswamy just might be onto something here when it comes to what we should expect out of our politicians. But I'm a realist as well. Social media not going away anytime soon. So with that said, tell me what you think. My X handle is @Blake Burman. Elizabeth Vargas reports coming up next here on News Nation. She'll be speaking to the Republican Congressman Rick Crawford from Arkansas, chair of the House Intelligence Committee. That is seconds away. I thank you for being with us tonight. I'm Blake. Elizabeth starts right now.